I'm Em.
And I'm Lex.
And we're thrilled to welcome you to the Ready, Set, Coach podcast.
Now, we're not just your hosts. We're also mamas, entrepreneurs, coaches, friends, and co-founders of the Ready, Set, Coach community.
What began as a pandemic side hustle has blossomed into a vibrant online community crafted by coaches for coaches.
So when we're not immersed in our coaching community on Circle, we're busy managing our other businesses, navigating the ups and downs of life, and of course, recording this podcast.
This is where we dive deep into epic conversations about life, business, coaching,
and everything in between.
So are you ready, Lex?
I'm set, Em.
Let's coach.
Guys,
hi. We figured it out. We know how to merge our faces so it feels like we're in person.
It's real life, actually.
Oh, okay.
We're in Denver, Colorado, coming to you live. We have a friend with us today who you're going to meet in a second. But first, we just wanted to say we're here.
And Lexi, why are you wearing a jacket?
Because it's freezing. It's probably like 66 degrees, but it was 90 degrees in Ventura last weekend. So for me, this is cold.
She's like, winter's coming. She's got gloves on. No, just kidding. Almost.
Kind of, basically. Okay, so
you got a little smut on your face. There we go.
Touch my face. You guys know us. There's a third person hanging out with us today if you're on YouTube. Plug. And so now we officially want to bring her to stage. Nicole, welcome to our little tripod.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to be able to interview you. And we were just talking before we started recording, that feeling when you know someone, but you've actually realized you've never been on screen with this person, let alone like held their smudge off their face like we're doing right now. So thinking about that feeling of connection, I feel like connections is in your DNA. So Nicole, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
I would love to. I am honored to be the head of community for Dreamers and Doers. I'm a two-time founder, and I'm also an adjunct professor at Parsons School of Design, which is my alma mater.
So a few things is what I'm hearing.
You do nothing with your life.
Just a few.
So I love the fact that we're talking to another multi-passionate, multi-hyphenate, slashy person. I feel like so many times when I meet someone that just says they do one thing with their life, I'm like, well, what's that like? Is that boring? That must be boring, right?
I couldn't imagine it. We were on a walk this morning talking about if we were stay-at-home moms, and I said eventually I'd probably just start a side hustle and find myself back in entrepreneurship somehow.
Yeah, so we struggle with that. So let's start at the end and then go back to the beginning. So currently you are this incredible community manager. Also, I want to point out, guys, we're outside, so you might hear outside noises. So we're like, this is the grittiness of podcasting in the big city. It's
hashtag authentic.
No, seriously, guys, there's like a trash. What are they? Truck words. Anywho. So you are the community manager of D&D, and just a little context for those that are like, what are you talking about, D&D? Dreamers and Doers. It is one of the most phenomenal communities that exists. We've had the pleasure of knowing the founder for years. Lexi is so excited. She is thumbs upping everything.
Doing it by itself.
She is basically breaking Zoom right now with her excitement. So we will address that momentarily. But yeah, so we've been a part of Dreamers and Doers for a while. And it's actually funny, Nicole, I've known Geisha, the founder, since probably the inception, but I wasn't a member. And it wasn't until Lexi actually encouraged me to become a member that I became a member in the last year or so, which has been
like, girl, what are you doing?
So Lex, how would you describe Dreamers and Doers?
So I like to think of Dreamers and Doers as an online application-based exclusive community for badass women. Beyond that, though, I know snaps. Okay, that's why we're in it. Something that I think really makes D&D stand apart is the PR opportunities. And obviously, if you guys listen to this show, you know the other half of me is PR related, and so I really appreciate the very coveted opportunities that you bring to members, and it's also one of the most engaged communities I've ever been in.
It really is, and we want to hear about that. So Nicole, how would you describe it? Is question number one, and number two is tell us how you got involved with it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like your definition completely nailed it. And it's actually the greatest gift to hear about your perception of community, because we all know that brands, live in the hearts and minds of the customer. And that's so true too for community. So it's really heartwarming to hear your perception of it. And it's so true. I mean, Dreamers and Doers is at its core an online community for phenomenal, extraordinary female entrepreneurs, leaders, investors, just absolute trailblazers. And that's what we do at our core. And then of course we have the community element of our membership, which is connecting with other amazing, extraordinary women. And then there's this other really important piece, which is this, what we call our PR hype machine, which is this amazing opportunity for members to get featured, constantly, a constant pipeline of opportunities to get featured. And so that's a really big other piece of what we do.
And I'll say, as an entrepreneur, it's an incredible kind of leg up in terms of, I mean, you're the PR expert here, but making your brand feel that much more legitimate and seen when you're able to create and cultivate, or as seen in NASDAQ or Forbes on your website. So I, as a solopreneur, am just beyond grateful for those opportunities. And as a co-founders, it's been incredible to be able to leverage, especially as we essentially built this brand from scratch all over again. So it was a very humbling experience, and to be able to plug into such a powerful resource and community that helped amplify and grow us was pretty remarkable.
Totally agree. So the second question, just a quick reminder you too, was how did you find your way to D&D?
I'm so glad you asked, and thank you for such a thoughtful question. It's such a full circle story and it's a short story, but I found Dreamers and Doers almost a decade ago when I was starting out on my own entrepreneurial journey. So I founded 2 businesses before I came to Dreamers and Doers, and early in the days of my very first business, Dreamers and Doers was how I met everybody in my network. I was such a fan, and I think we all here are fangirls of Geisha Haas, who is the founder of this phenomenal business. And the sort of reverence for Geisha existed 10 years ago when I was just starting out on this journey and leveraging Dreamers and Doers for the very first time. And so fast forward 2 companies later, being back as head of community, being on the team is the coolest. Like, I could not imagine a cooler and more amazing role to have. But that's really how I found my way back. And so I like to say that it's been a really healing journey to be in this role as someone who is sort of coming off of founderhood for almost a decade, and just everything that comes along with that. And so to be in a role now where I have the greatest pleasure and honor and joy of supporting more than 700 female founders, entrepreneurs, leaders, investors, is really a beautiful full circle moment, and it's such a wonderful experience to be able to take all of the learnings. You live lives when you're an entrepreneur, you just live lifetimes. And so to be able to sort of turn that around and then support other people who are on their own journeys is really, really special.
We both like that. So you have a question. So we've talked a lot about, first off, thank you, and hearing the full circle moment that you were the customer and the client, the person using this, and now you love it so much you're in it. This is the next phase of your life. What a testament to this community that has been built. Now, this coaching podcast is predominantly for coaches. So I want to bring it in specifically in a little bit more niche to coaches who are interested in potentially creating a new revenue stream or a membership, something obviously emulating the amazingness that is Dreamers and Doers. Give us any insider tips, if you will, tips behind the scenes on how Geisha, how you guys are growing and actually getting such incredible people to sign up for this membership.
That's such a great question. And yes, all the tips, all the insider tips. I think that what it comes down to for us all the time is we are ruthlessly user-centered. I mean, we just live for our members, and we make every decision in a very human way. We say that a lot internally as a company, like every decision is very nuanced, it's very human. And so when we think about growth, any decision like that, we make with the best possible member experience in mind. And I think that that is sometimes easier said than done. It's sometimes easier said than done. And what it requires is a team that's really, really, really plugged in to the member experience. So coming back to this idea of having been a member myself and then coming full circle and being head of community, it's an important element. Being a founder, like coming into this with my own sort of personal connection to what the user journey is like as a member, I think is really, really important. And so any growth decision that we make is really rooted in the member experience. And we joke that we're very unscientific with the way that we make internal decisions in the company. You know, we are a team of women. We're a team of a bunch of brilliant women. Yeah, thank you. And we really embrace intuitive decision making. And it's something that Geisha cares a lot about as the founder of the company and the CEO of the company, are those really intuitively led, gut-led decisions. And we use those words a lot internally as a company. So I think that anytime that you're building a community or a community element of your business, this is true for entrepreneurship in general. Of course, you need to meet the needs. You need to solve the problems of the people who you're looking to support. But so important with community because it is such a living, breathing, dynamic thing. And you're skipping the middleman in terms of having a particular product that sort of stands between you and the customer. It's just you and your interaction. And that's what is creating value for your people. So that's what I would say is probably the biggest thing, is that intuitive, really, really member-led decision making.
I think that's beautiful. And I think it is so cool that you're able to reflect on your own user experience and then also implement any changes or any tweaks needed as you are leading this incredible head of community. I do also want to reflect on having built now 2 communities. I had a big realization, and Lexi and I talk about this a lot. I love building community, but I find it really exhausting to maintain community. And I don't know if you feel this similarly. And so often people we probably had this conversation a million times with founders and coaches who are like, I want to build a community. I'm just going to open it and then they're going to come and then I'm going to make a lot of money and it's going to be a membership and I will be in Bora Bora, filthy rich. And it's like, oh, there's a lot of missing stops along the way there. But I would love to hear your thought process on like how to thoughtfully create and curate and maintain community while also not burning yourself out.
That's such a great question. And there's so many things that I want to say on this particular topic. I think that number one, it's about like, what does it look like to sort of manage and run a community, but also just the idea of starting a community. The word community is so buzzy now. And it wasn't, when we reflect as a team upon the inception of Dreamers and Doers, Geisha talks about how community wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing 10 years ago when she started this. And now it is, right? It's everywhere and everybody wants to have a community. And also the definition of community has sort of like become quite a bit loose. And I think that what we have to think about is the inception of Dreamers and Doers was not sexy. It wasn't flashy. It was really, really grassroots. And that's the best way to build a community is in a way that is grassroots. The reason being because when you build something in a way that's grassroots, and when I say that, I mean like meeting with a couple people, Geisha met a couple people over brunch, and and Emily, you were around for this. Like it was not like the flash and the value prop that it is today. But what it was like really deep one-to-one interactions with the people who this company serves, which are still the foundations of the company today. And so yes, I think that communities are beautiful and necessary and infinitely possible for everybody to build. And also starting thoughtfully and in a way that is sort of small and almost without expectation, going in and understanding really what the people who you're looking to serve, what their needs are. Is a community what their need is? Yes, we all need community. And so, but I think that starting from humble beginnings is really important. And it's something that I talk about with my students at Parsons is how can you, like, yes, you have this vision, you have this grand, beautiful vision, which is so important. It's so important for founders to have that. And also, how can you bring that down into reality and test that in really small, really, really manageable ways? And it might be brunch with a couple people, talking around the table about their needs. And so I think that's one big piece about sort of the grandiose idea of building community from scratch. The other thing, to your other point about community management, and I think this is true about a lot of business models, that what it looks like to stand up a community looks maybe different than what it looks like to sustain a community in a thriving and successful way. And so we're in this really wonderful place in Dreamers and Doers today, where Geisha, the founder, has been operating this business for almost 10 years. And it's only just been in the past 2 years that a head of community has joined the party. And that has changed a lot of the internal operations of the company and what community management looks like. And I think that community management can be really, really exhausting. It's a lot. It is a living, breathing, dynamic space. And unless you put really, really rigid parameters in place, it's pretty amorphous. You don't really have much control over it. You have boundaries, but you don't have a lot of control. And so it does require a moderator. It does require a lot of attention. It requires a lot of sort of being in there, tweaking. I like to joke that, I tell our members, like, you don't have to be plugged into Dreamers and Doers all the time. It's my job to have like an IV into my arm directly connected to Dreamers and Doers. That's my job. And that is really what it takes. I think that something that we talk about internally, we talk about externally with members, is we talk about generosity in the context of the community. But we talk in the same breath about setting boundaries. And so internally, as community management, you have to do the same thing. We are giving of ourselves so much and creating what we hope is a beautiful, nourishing space for our members, but we also have to pour from a full cup ourselves. And so it's something that I don't think that there's a perfect recipe for that, but I do think that it is something that anybody who's running a community, building or sustaining a community, needs to be really mindful about what they want their relationship to look like with that business model.
A through line that I'm hearing in a lot of these answers that I want to highlight is you're really, really user centric, and you're really focused on the quality of the product, and your product are the people, right? How have you grown this community? How have you built this community? You focused on making sure the user experience is phenomenal. And I think actually all three of us can speak and attest to that. And so how did Emily join the community? Because I told her to. How did I join the community? Because my client told me to. It really kind of organically grew. It wasn't some fancy Instagram DM me funnel thing, right? It was really focusing on the human beings inside. So this is a bit of a selfish question. And maybe this is easier because I know Dreamers and Doers has an application-based process, but how, as a head of community, do you get to know your members, especially when it's scaling, at a level that allows you to know maybe when to tag them, when to plug them in, when to bring them into the conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is that we're still at a size where I know everybody's name. And I know what they do. I know where they are in the world, what businesses they have, and I connect with them one-on-one. It's a big part of my day, every day of the week, to connect one-on-one individually with members. And it reminds me a bit of I had an entire past life career in fashion, and I worked as a buyer. And it was this wonderful creative outlet to be making design decisions and creative direction decisions for the department. But there was a really, really important, much sort of less sexy part of the job where I needed to be on the sales floor all the time. And that frustrated me sort of as a young career person, that I really wanted to just sort of like be in the back office making my creative direction decisions. Now, fast forward, more than a decade in my career, I have such an appreciation for, again, that being user-centered. I understand why that is in place. And it really is the greatest joy. It's the best part of my day to get a chance to connect one-on-one with members, because I think that what makes Dreamers and Doers really special is you have a human being who is your glue to everybody else in the community. That's really special. Is it scalable to infinity? Maybe not necessarily, but we we internally have a lot of conversations about what does scaling look like? What does growth look like for us? We really, as a team, appreciate the intimacy, the feeling of intimacy that we think the Dreamers and Doers has today. And so it is a big topic of conversation of how can we continue to create that kind of experience where we continue to not invest $1 into marketing just because our members are delighted by their experience, and then they go and bring all of their amazing friends into the fold. We want to keep that going, and that's more important to us than rapid scaling. And in fact, it's the reason why we've chosen, and really Geisha has chosen over the years, slower, more sustainable growth. And that really is our stake in the ground, is that allows us to create the kind of experience and that kind of delightful environment and that intimacy that we all really value as entrepreneurs who are coming to this ourselves because we love being in community with others.
Hey everyone, Lex here.
And Em.
And if you haven't heard, we did something pretty darn cool.
We sure did. We launched a completely free community built specifically for coaches.
Say it again for the people in the back.
We launched a free community for coaches. Tell them quickly who it's for and what we're doing inside, Lex.
Sure thing. So it's for anyone from the coaching curious to side hustlers to coaches ready to scale. And through the virtual platform that we've built, we've created a safe and fun space to learn, launch, grow, connect, ideate, collaborate, vent, and evolve together.
Nailed it, Lex. Now, while it's free, you must apply in order to gain a free membership. You know, so we can make sure everyone inside is awesome, like us.
Apply today at readysetcoachcommunity.com.
I love that. I love that explanation of it all. And reflecting on my experience at D&D, I joined, there was a job seeking D&D Facebook group. It was all managed via Facebook group. It was job seeking. It was like apartment swapping, promoting events. And you've since closed these Facebook groups and moved on in terms of platforms and have found Circle, which Circle has definitely been, when I first was introduced to Circle, I hated Circle. And then the more I spent time on Circle, the more I fell in love with Circle. I've realized this about myself. I'm a slow adapter to things. And I think you, with Dreamers and Doers, do a beautiful job of integrating all of the things that these separate Facebook groups had components of into one really safe space. So my question for you is, how did the pandemic influence your growth in a virtual community?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was an interesting time. And I will say that the pandemic did predate me a little bit in my role with Dreamers and Doers as head of community. So while I wasn't there specifically, when the pandemic hit, it wasn't long after that I joined the team, but there was an outpouring of interest in connecting with people at a time where we were unable to connect with people in the way that we were used to doing so. And so I don't think that it necessarily changed anything about the business model or the way that we think about the experience, but it really was a wonderful time to sort of bring a lot of new people into the community, which is certainly true, and think about what those kind of external forces that create sort of those big waves of change within your business, like what that looks like, for future planning for the business. So yeah, I don't think that it really necessarily changed so much, but it was a time of growth for us, which we were of course grateful for. That wasn't true for every business type out there.
So my kind of last question for you as we begin to wrap up here is, if I were to pose this question broadly to anyone listening who's thinking about, again, launching a community, adding this as a revenue stream, and the question is, should you launch a community? What are the top considerations you think someone should really brainstorm on that would indicate yes or no?
That's a great question. I think that the top consideration is who are you serving? So perhaps you already have an audience, you already have a product, and you already have people. So defining who it is that you're serving, and then what is it that they need? What are their pain points? One of my favorite frameworks is jobs to be done, which essentially says, what are the pain points that people are already experiencing? And how are they already solving them, even if it's bad? So how are they already sort of like piecemealing a solution together that's not really working very well, but they're doing it because they have such a need that they're creating some kind of makeshift solution for that problem. And that's where there's a point of intervention. That's where there's an opportunity for design intervention. And is it community? Is it something else? Community is, like I said, it's a bit more loosely defined than it used to be, right? We think about a lot of different things as community. Sometimes we think about our relationships on social media as community, even though oftentimes it's a one-way communication and you're not actually getting a group dynamic communication happening. And so the question is really, the first question after it's defining who your people are and defining their pain points is what is that design intervention? Is it community? If it is, it's thinking about what the specific needs are for those specific people. The interesting thing about building community is that it is designed to be niche. It is designed to serve the needs, very, very specific needs of very specific people. We've made a lot of decisions, a lot of business model decisions. PR Hype Machine is a great example of one, very specifically because there was a need for female entrepreneurs and leaders to be written up in a different way in the media. And we wanted to create that change. We also wanted to create those opportunities to amplify members. And so that came out of a direct experience of hearing the pain points over and over again. It is so hard as an early stage founder to get press. It's so expensive to hire, an agency. Like I'm bootstrapping, where do I even begin? And so again, like thinking about designing specifically for that pain point, I think is the best. It's the closest you will get to truth and the closest you'll get to de-risking your business hypothesis if you start with the problem.
Amen.
Sister.
Amen. Oh my gosh. I have like a million questions that I am going to sidebar with you. My final question for you is for the person, again, I think what Lexi just asked was so perfect. I think it's like getting a puppy. When people get puppies, they think it's going to be so wonderful and that it's going to be just fluffy and love you and never bark back at you and never destroy your favorite shoes. But that's not the reality. There is consistency, there is dedication, there is frustration, there is love, and there is time commitment. For someone starting a new community, how much time do you recommend they commit to it?
That's a great question. It is an around the clock business model.
Okay.
The doors don't close. There's no close sign that you can flip on the door. It is active all the time. So it's actually more, I think, a follow-on question of what do you want your community experience to look and feel like? A really dynamic community where there's a lot of engagement and a lot of action is going to require a lot of attention, a lot of moderation, a lot of putting rules into place to make sure that everyone's staying in the lane that they're meant to be in to create the best possible experience. So it's really that question about what do you want that to look like? Your Dreamers and Doers is, as you both know, a really dynamic space. It's very active. In fact, you feel behind if you don't log into it, every so often. There's so much going on. There's a lot of action. It's a lot to manage. Yeah. And so, but that's also a 10-year-old community with hundreds and hundreds of members.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the nature of this particular community. It can look so different across the board. I mean, when you think about just community in general, mm-hmm. You think about religious community, you think about political community, you think about academic community. There's all these different examples of how we gather together with a shared interest, across the board, across the sort of human experience. And those all look really different. There's religious communities might meet once a week and then they have no contact with each other the rest of the time. In Dreamers and Doers, we're all the time, we're interacting with each other. So it's thinking about what does that experience look like? And again, coming back to like, what are the needs of your people? What kind of experience do they want? In their role, in their work, in what's important to them, in their season of life, what makes the most sense in terms of cadence and touch points and And what does that experience look like? So I think that that's really the big question. But the be all end all answer is a lot of time, a lot of time around the clock, as with any business, right? As with absolutely any business. But with a business that you can't shut the door and lock the door at the end of the day, yeah, it's particularly around the clock for sure.
And I think you guys do a really good job. Just a big shout out to you about putting those boundaries into place for something that is always moving. If someone posts in the wrong channel, like, you are very quick to correct it, and you do it in a way that doesn't make the person feel bad about it. You makes them feel like, oh, I'm going to be more thoughtful about how I post, or the questions I ask, or what I promote and how I promote it. And I think that's really incredible model to model community off of.
Yeah. I have your homework, and your homework is to tap back. Like, if you're listening on your phone and you're not driving, there's that little wheel thing, right? Or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll. I want you to tap back a couple minutes, because when you were just speaking, Nicole, you listed off a series of phenomenal questions that I want you guys for your homework to brainstorm on. Okay. So tap back a couple minutes, write down those questions, and take some serious time to think. It's really, I think the idea of launching a membership in a community can be sexy. It can be cool. You think it's going to be passive. It's not. So really take the time to answer questions. And Nicole, from the bottom of our heart, we just want to thank you for all that you do for D&D and for taking the time to be on this podcast with us.
She has about 27 notifications right now.
Have you seen them
in the last 37 minutes? So I just want to call that out.
Business life, we all get it. We probably all do, actually, times 10.
I'm kidding. But
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a joy, and I hope little tidbits are helpful for anybody sort of venturing out on their community journey. It's a beautiful, beautiful, impactful, wonderful, just sort of cup filling mission to have, to want to create a place where people can come together. So I salute and bow to anyone who is up for the challenge and welcome it for sure.
So Nicole, final send off. How can people continue connecting and find out more information about you and D&D?
Yes, well, we would love for you to connect with us. We're dreamersdoers.com, and our website has all the information about what Dreamers and Doers membership looks like, what our PR membership looks like, what that whole experience is like. And we're on Instagram, which is where we feature a ton of just great, like, very fun, again, human-centered things that our members have experienced, but also within the community, but also where they've been featured in the amazing publications and the work that they're doing. And it's a really fun, inspiring place, even if you don't and aren't even interested in becoming a member, of just seeing phenomenal, extraordinary women and the work that they're doing. Check us out at Dreamers Doers on Instagram. Those are the best places to keep up with us.
Lexi, I'm adding a new question that we're ending. Okay, this is a new one. So if this sucks, we're going to edit it out. But Nicole, our company is called Ready, Set, Coach. So if we were to find you your dream next coach, what would be your dream next coach be?
Wow, I love this question. My dream next coach?
Thank you. Yeah, because I feel like, okay, we have coaches for everything, and we're a coaching community. And if we can give back and find you your dream, it literally could be like how to get up earlier in the morning. Like, it doesn't have to be
plant coach. I'm just seeing a bunch of plants right now.
How to train my dog.
You know what? I think that, and this is actually a great point on the community front, which is that there's a lot going on in a lot of different places, and sometimes your brain can feel a little bit scattered. And so that's like my point of optimization right now in my life, is like, how to unify the scatter brain. Like, how do you sort of not feel pulled in a lot of different directions? What does that look like? How do you design your day to optimize for that? So I think that's what comes up.
Alexi, do you have the solution of the coach?
I was just relating to her as she was speaking. Then my brain was melting, and then I was experiencing the problem firsthand. We could call it a lot of things. It could be I feel like you have the answer.
I do, but I want to coach you into the answer. Okay.
No, because I can do a lot of different things.
Well, it sounds like executive functioning, and it sounds like
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
an organization,
executive functioning.
And we have an incredible coach for that. So we will connect you after the fact with the fabulous Corey Whitland at Whitland Coaching.
Okay. That's our spiel, guys. That's our show. Thanks for tuning in to the
Ready, Set, Coach podcast. If you're enjoying the Ready, Set, Coach podcast, please leave a review wherever you are listening. For more information about Ready, Set, Coach, visit readysetcoachprogram.com.